Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Tang, and I'm the co-founder and CTO at LivePeer. Um, Before we talk about how to effectively attract Web2 creators, I want to give you some background on why I'm talking about this topic here. So, LivePeer is the world's leading video streaming infrastructure project for Web3. So today, some of the leading Web3 consumer-facing applications use LivePeer. Applications like LensTube or Bonfire or Beam, to say a few. There's about 2.5 million minutes of video that gets created in the LivePeer network on every single week. So we've been working on this project for the past 6 years. It's been a long time. We first started building this as a part of the Ethereum core stack. And in the past 6 years, we've seen a lot of waves come and go, right? But one really important thing that we saw in the last year or so is this really growing trend of consumer applications starting to evolve in Web3, right? Before that, it was mostly DeFi and SEO waves, right? But now, when we look at the Web3 space, we see NFT projects started from PFP projects, but now evolving towards more than just PFP, more dynamic types of content, more interesting engagement with users, right? So if you really squint, you can see how Web3 technology and blockchain technology can really start to proliferate every application that we touch on a day-to-day basis. And that's why it is important for us to talk about creators. Why is that? Well, the creator economy is, if we step back, is the largest economic shift that's happening in our world's economy today, right? And it's one of the fastest growing sectors in all the world's GDP, right? This year is estimated to be about $65 billion, and if you look at the pace of change, right, from 2021 to 2022 to 23 to 24, that pace of change is growing. Between this year and next year, it's going to grow by over 10%, and that is a really big amount from a overall economic perspective, right? If you look at the type of creations that people are trying to do, people are trying to create, you see video type of content is it's that white part, right? It's about half of all the creative activity is happening there. But it's not only there. There's podcasting, there's metaverses, esports, different types of publishing, right? Things like Substack. Those are all kind of what people are doing online, really trying to make a living by being a creator, by creating the thing that they really love, finding their own audience on the internet, right? But even though this is a really growing industry, it's not without its problems. And one of the biggest problems here is that there's a huge inequality in the creator economy, right? So YouTube is by far the largest creator economy platform on the internet. It accounts for half of all the economic activity that's happening in this space. If you look at YouTube, you see the top 5% of channels on YouTube accounts for 90% of the subscribership, right? And because YouTube's algorithm and YouTube's payout method basically goes with the subscribership, it means about the bulk amount of all the economic activity and all the revenue on the platform is made by the top 5%. And there lies the biggest opportunity for Web3, which is to serve the 95% of the creators that are not making that much money on YouTube, and they are not being served by today's creator economy platforms, right? So how do we do that? How can Web3 help? How can we actually make a difference for these creators? So we've been tracking in the last 6 to 12 months or so, and we're seeing some really interesting successful examples for creators who are really kind of resourceful, jumping into Web3 and using these emerging tools to really have some have some successful case studies. So I want to point out a few. One category is that creators figuring out how to monetize their content better by switching to Web3, right? And monetization happened in all different formats. Here, this is a creator. His name is Daniel Allen, and he is kind of one of the first musicians who really made a name for himself in the Web3 kind of music NFT space. In fact, he was very much unknown, like a college kid, before he did this campaign. I think in the later half of 2021, he did a drop on Mirror, and because he was really good at building his community before that, he was able to do a really, really successful drop, raising about almost 50 ETH at that time, over $100,000, right? Before dropping an album. Now that to a musician is a life-changing event, because that proves that you have a community already, and it gives you the capital in order to launch the album and actually create all the activities around the album, and that launched his career. And now he's a very successful Web3 centric musician, right? So that's one example. Another is really about ownership. So in Web3, we talk about ownership a lot, right? So and that's one of the foundational value propositions of the blockchain, is that the creators not only are able to own their content that they create by minting NFTs and things like that, they're also able to own the direct relationship with their fans. Instead of if they build their followership on YouTube or TikTok or any of those platforms, well, their fans live on those platforms. They really can't take their fans with them. On the blockchain, they can actually do that. Here's a quote from Varium Fund, which is a leader in this space from an investment perspective. And I love this quote, right? The products and services that will define Web3, the next generation of the internet, are those that turn users into owners. We call this the ownership economy, right? So this is the promise that the users of those platforms can now own a piece of the platform that they use on a daily basis. And that's going to be a huge trend that will continue to happen. And we're already seeing this kind of transition happen, in the last year or so, right? So across publishing, audio streaming, video streaming, and funding, we're seeing Web3, like new waves of Web3 applications that pop up, that compete and sometimes even replace the current Web2 platforms. And that's forcing the Web2 platforms to have to adjust, to have to change the way that they engage with their creators. And finally, it comes down to the community, right? We talked a little bit about one of the reasons of creators coming into the Web3 space being that they can directly engage with their community. Even though it's not trivial, right? Being able to engage with their community through different tools is actually quite difficult. But there's a way now to do that, because the foundational kind of infrastructure of the fandom is happening and being recorded on the blockchain. A good example is kind of the Lens ecosystem, right? Lens is a new emerging social graph. There are tens and tens of applications that are becoming pretty popular in that ecosystem. And the interesting thing there is that if I'm a user in one Lens application, I can engage with all of my followers and my entire social graph in all the other Lens applications. So if I'm using LensTube, which is a YouTube-style video sharing application, and I don't like using, maybe I don't like using LensTube for whatever reason, well, I can switch to Lenster, which is a slightly a different front end that's more Twitter-like, right? So I can start to take my audience with me to these different arenas, and you can start to. And the powerful thing is that you can start to apply different growth strategies across all these different platforms, and all contribute back to your community. So that's a little bit about some playbooks that you can start to follow to start to attract Web2 creators into Web3. Thanks.
Let's get a round of applause for our speaker, Eric Tang.